You are welcome to yet another episode of HN What's Your Say? The #1 listening show, where we discuss real issues with real people like you. We are still featuring R. Kelly. Real name Robert Sylvester Kelly. Also known as the R&B King. During the government's bid to destroy R. Kelly, something very troubling took place. Something that should concern every American whether you are a fan of his music or not. The government seemed to enjoy the liberty of breaking the very laws they swore to uphold whenever those laws created a hurdle to their agenda. And despite these blatant breaches of justice, they were still granted victory in not one but two shamelessly wrongful verdicts. The law broke the law, and this is not only unacceptable. It is dangerous for the future of justice in this country. Let us break this down carefully step by step, because this is bigger than one man, bigger than one case, and bigger than one celebrity. What happened in the R. Kelly trials exposes the government's willingness to bend, twist and even discard the law whenever it threatens their ability to win a conviction. This is not justice. It's persecution under the disguise of law. The United States justice system is built on the idea that no one is above the law. Not the accused, not the witnesses, and not even the government itself. That's why prosecutors are bound by strict rules. They must present truthful evidence, respect constitutional rights, and prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. But in R. Kelly's trials, these rules became optional. Prosecutors, judges, and even investigators treated the law not as a standard to uphold, but as a tool to weaponize. Think about it: if the government can break the law to punish one man they've targeted, what's to stop them from doing the same to you or anyone else who gets in their way? One of the most glaring examples of this abuse was the way prosecutors misused laws like the RICO Act and the Mann Act. These laws were never designed for the scenarios in which R. Kelly was charged. RICO was originally crafted to dismantle organized crime families. Mafia groups running gambling, extortion and racketeering rings. Yet somehow, the government twisted it to claim that an artist's music career was a criminal enterprise. That's absurd on its face. RICO requires proof of a structured criminal organization and not an entourage, not employees, and certainly not fans. By stretching the definition of RICO beyond recognition, the government effectively broke the law by applying it where it does not belong. The Mann Act likewise was twisted to criminalize actions that do not even fall under its language. The act prohibits transporting individuals across state lines for illegal sexual activity. But the government ignored the difference between transportation and travel. In Kelly's case, women traveled willingly, often independently, and there was no evidence of coercion or criminal intent in the acts alleged. Yet prosecutors deliberately blurred this legal distinction, presenting consensual relationships as crimes. By confusing the jury on purpose, the government broke the integrity of the law they were supposed to follow. The government also repeatedly ignored the law in how they handled witnesses. In both the New York and Chicago trials, prosecution witnesses admitted to committing crimes themselves. Some had engaged in illegal activity alongside R. Kelly, yet instead of facing justice, they were rewarded with immunity deals. How does that make sense? If the law is truly about fairness, then everyone who breaks it should be held accountable. But in these trials, the government handed out get-out-of-jail-free cards to anyone willing to falsely testify against Kelly, no matter how questionable or self-serving their testimony might be. Even worse, clear contradictions, lies and perjury went unchecked. In a lawful courtroom, perjury is a crime. But when the lies favored the prosecution's narrative, they were swept under the rug. The government broke the law by not holding its own witnesses accountable, instead allowing falsehoods to shape the verdict. Another area where the law was broken lies in the principle of ensuring an impartial jury. Every defendant has a constitutional right to a fair trial, which includes shielding jurors from prejudicial media coverage. But in R. Kelly's case, the government thrived on media manipulation. Prosecutors knew that documentaries like Surviving R. Kelly had poisoned the public against him. They knew jurors were entering the courtroom with preconceived notions shaped by sensationalized narratives. Instead of safeguarding his right to an unbiased jury, the government weaponized the media frenzy to their advantage. This is not just unethical. It violates constitutional protections guaranteed under the Sixth Amendment. When the media becomes an arm of the prosecution, the law is broken. The judges in both trials also played a role in breaking the law. Instead of remaining neutral arbiters, they made decisions and comments that tipped the scales heavily in favor of the government. Judge Ann Donnelly in New York, for example, made remarks that suggested she had already accepted the government's framing of Kelly as a predator long before the jury even deliberated. And in Chicago, Judge Harry Leinenweber went as far as to disregard the jury's acquittal on certain counts, still inferring obstruction of justice in sentencing. This was a shocking betrayal of the standard of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. When a judge overrides the jury's decision and replaces it with their own bias, the rule of law collapses. Even after conviction, the government broke the law further. In Kelly's civil lawsuit against the Bureau of Prisons, it has come to light that his private prison communications were illegally accessed and leaked to bloggers like Tasha K. This is a direct violation of his constitutional rights as well as federal regulations protecting inmate privacy. How can the same government that accuses someone of misconduct turn around and engage in misconduct themselves? The law is supposed to apply equally, but in R. Kelly's case, it was ignored whenever it protected him and enforced only when it condemned him. At its core, what happened to R. Kelly shows us that the government can weaponize the law. Instead of using it to seek truth and justice, they use it to pursue victories, headlines, and political gain. The law became a tool for character assassination rather than fact-finding. It became a weapon to silence an artist who had fallen out of favor. And once the system decides to destroy you, they will twist every rule, every statute, and every principle of fairness to ensure they win. Truth and justice be damned. Why does this matter beyond R. Kelly? Some might say, he's a celebrity so it doesn't matter. But that is precisely the problem. If the government can bend the law this way against someone with fame, resources, and recognition, imagine what they can do to the average person. Your constitutional rights, your right to privacy, your right to a fair trial, and your right to protection from government overreach are all at risk if we allow these abuses to stand. The law is supposed to be the great equalizer. But if the government can break it without consequence, then there is no law at all. The miscarriage of justice in R. Kelly's trial should not be ignored. It should be studied, challenged, and remembered as a warning. The appeals process now underway is not just about one man. It is about whether the justice system still has the capacity to correct itself. Bonjean and her legal team have pointed out the inconsistencies, the misapplications of law, the biased rulings, and the constitutional violations. If justice is to mean anything, these appeals must succeed. Not because R. Kelly is perfect, not because he is famous, but because the law cannot be allowed to break itself in order to win. Let's return to where we began. During the government's bid to destroy R. Kelly, they broke the law repeatedly, shamelessly, and unapologetically. They misused statutes, ignored due process, rewarded criminal witnesses, overlooked perjury, manipulated juries, violated privacy, and allowed biased judges to tip the scales. The law broke the law. And when that happens, none of us are safe. Justice is not about who you like or dislike. It's not about fame, power, or public opinion. Justice is about truth, fairness, and accountability, even for the government itself. Until those principles are restored, the verdicts against R. Kelly will remain a stain on the very idea of justice in this country. And that is why this fight matters. Not just for R. Kelly, but for everyone who believes in the rule of law. That is all we had for you today on HN What's Your Say? To keep updated whenever we post a new video, subscribe to this channel now. Also remember to hit the bell icon and enable notifications. And feel free to share your opinions with us in the comment section below, and let us know if you would like us to publish your views in our next release. We value all our subscribers' opinions.